Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Heartbeat, your daily Inter Miami podcast. And today we are previewing tonight's game against Chicago Fire at Chase Stadium. Inter Miami coming off a 3-1 victory against Toronto FC, and they get a little bit of another similar opponent lower down the table without a huge number of impact players in this game to close out the first two-thirds of the MLS regular season before the League's Cup starts next week. They have found themselves back at the top of the table after a couple losses from Cincinnati. A couple results around the league went their way. And then, of course, Inter Miami won on Wednesday night to go up to 50 points, which is a club record. And there's still 10 games to go. So this magical season that is Inter Miami's first full season with the Barca gang and Tata Martino is continuing to rev up in a positive way. And hopefully that can continue tonight against the Chicago Fire. Let's talk about them because they are not the best team. They currently sit 13th in the Eastern Conference, 24th overall in the Supporter Shield table. It's not a great team. Let's just be honest with you. They have a couple of key impact players that you can see being really important tonight, but the team as a whole lacks a significant amount of quality and particularly depth. Let's see what they're up to. They actually have had a relatively good run of form of late. They've won 4 of their last 8 games, including some big games against SC Cincinnati this past Wednesday, and then they started that off with a win over the LA Galaxy. So the last 8 games, they've definitely been an improved team, and I think that's important to remember as context for when we talk about how bad they are, because in the previous 9 games before that, they were absolutely winless and fell to one of the worst teams in the league. And this is a team that had a little bit of excitement, a little bit of confidence going into the season. They had brought in a big number 9 striker. They had brought in a few MLS veterans that they thought were going to upgrade the roster. And it hasn't really worked out. Frank Klopas, the coach, returns after a stint earlier about a decade ago with the Chicago Fire. Hasn't really been able to get this team popping like the front office thought they would in the offseason. But as I mentioned, they've been a little bit better over the last 6 or 7 weeks, the last 8 games or so. They are coming off a midweek win over FC Cincinnati, in which they should feel confident. Chris Brady for Chicago Fire, their goalkeeper, had a really big game. But I will put an asterisk to say that Lucho Acosta and Miles Robinson, probably the 2 best players on FC Cincinnati, did not play in that game. One because of a card suspension and one because of a small knock. So there are reasons why the Chicago Fire were able to play an even game against FC Cincinnati. It was a close game, pretty even if you look at the advanced stats, and Chicago Fire get a 1-0 victory thanks to Chris Gutierrez in the 69th minute, I believe. They're not good away from home. They've played 12 games this year, only 2 wins, 4 draws, 6 losses, only scored 14 goals away from home in 12 games, which is one of the themes of their entire season. They don't score a ton of goals, 29 goals through 24 games. It's just not a good goal scoring record. And considering they spent a lot of money to bring in a new competent number 9 this offseason at Hugo Kuipers, it's been a disappointment, I think. But there are some reasons why. Hugo Kuipers, a guy that thrives on service, and we'll talk about him in a few minutes, but it's just not a good offensive team. They don't have a lot of creative playmakers. They don't have a lot of guys that are good on the ball. They don't have a lot of guys that can build offense from a back to front style. Most of their goals come in transition, or on set pieces. So this isn't a great offensive team. Inter Miami should feel good that if they can score 2, 3, 4 goals, that they'll win this game relatively easily. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that their 2 left backs are both injured. They brought in Andrew Gutman to be the sort of upgrade at left back. He played for Colorado, played for Atlanta, has been around the MLS, but he's a solid MLS left back. He got hurt. Their backup left back got hurt. And so they've in recent weeks been more in a back three. That's how they've made the adjustment. Sometimes a 3-4-2-1, sometimes a 3-5-2. It's a little bit more fluid in the front, guys moving in and out of position, but they've been playing mostly a back three. And again, it's not a coincidence that when they did that, their results started to improve. And as we talk about some of their key players, you'll notice this as a common theme that once a player started improving, the team's results started improving. And let's start with who's missing for this Chicago Fire team. The biggest name is Xherdan Shaqiri. He just had an excellent Euros with Switzerland, has been a very good player on the international stage for quite some time. But when he came to the MLS, he came to Chicago a couple years ago, he's never really fit in. He's always had quality. And listen, he scored a banger against Inter Miami at the end of last season in that 4-1 loss that I think really killed our chances of making the playoffs. But so individually he has talent, but I guess the criticism from Chicago Fire fans has been that he's never really elevated the rest of the team. He's not going to be there. He's still recovering from maybe a small knock that he got at the Euros, but he's just not going to be available for Chicago tonight. Andrew Gutman, as I mentioned, their left back that they thought was going to be a big piece for them, has been injured for about 6 weeks now. Federico Navarro, a defensive midfielder, also out. And then Carlos Teheran, he's a center back that I've always liked when I get to see him play. The results have been a little bit more inconsistent if you look at him from a season perspective, but I feel like every time I see him play, he's a big, athletic, physical center back that you could want on your team. Right? He's the kind of guy that you could really appreciate. He's also not available for them, so they're missing their left back. They're big up their best center back, Xherdan Shaqiri, one of their most creative playmakers. This is a team that's missing some of their best players, and I think that will be reflected in what happens tonight. The guys that will be there that are important, Hugo Kuipers. Again, this is the big number 9 DP signing that they got this offseason. I think he was the reason that this team felt like they could really turn a corner this year. They didn't make the playoffs last year, and they thought this signing from Ghent, who was very good in the Belgian league, was going to be the guy that took them over the top into the playoff conversation, and that's not where they're at currently. He's a classic number 9, strong, physical, good positioning, but he's a guy that needs service. He's a set piece threat, but the problem is he hasn't gotten a ton of service because this Chicago Fire team doesn't have a lot of creative players, especially without Shaqiri in the team. He got off to a really slow start this season, and he has started to find his groove. And again, I do want to make this difference between the last 8 games and sort of what came before, because there has been a noticeable uptick in what the Chicago Fire have been able to do. And part of that is Hugo Kuipers, who has been good of late. He's had a few poor performances in there, but when he gets it going, he can get it going. He's got 9 goals on the season, 2 assists. So he's having a solid season. He's on pace for maybe 15 goals. And, that's a good, solid debut season for a number 9 on a really bad team. Marin Haley Selassie, a wide attacker. This is the guy I really want to key in on tonight. He is very pacey, very quick, very good in transition. 5 goals, 2 assists this season. So not incredibly prolific as a goal scorer, but he's the exact type of player that can give Inter Miami trouble. We've talked about it all season. We saw it even against Cincinnati most recently with Leo Abada. Those really quick, pacey wingers, they can give Inter Miami trouble, especially in transition, which is exactly what the Chicago Fire are going to want to do tonight. He's a guy to really look out for. He can play on both sides. He's a wide attacker, but you might see him on the left, you might see him on the right. He recently had a 4-game goal scoring streak, and again, he's another player that over the last 2 months or so, basically since the beginning of June, has taken a step up in his game. And as a result, the Chicago Fire have been a much better team. Another player to watch out who's also seen his form pick up over the last 2 months was Brian Gutierrez. This is an exciting young player. He's very tall, very big, very physical, but a creative player. You see a lot of players like this in the league that are just box to box, sit back guys that can run and be physical. Gutierrez has some real talent going forward. He is creative in the final third. He can put off some really nice shots. He can score really nice goals. Creative player. He was having a really tough season, but at least to start the season. But again, this is a player whose form has picked up lately. He's gotten five goals, 2 assists over the last 6 weeks or so. He is playing better, and again, he's a young player. I think he's 20, 21. Very good, very promising young player. He's going to be a guy that goes to Europe over the next couple seasons. It's just a matter of, can he harness all of that in tonight's game, or is it going to be the next game? He's a little bit inconsistent, but when he gets it going, he can be a really good player. And again, he scored the game-winning goal against Cincinnati in the midweek, so he's going to have a little bit of confidence. Chris Brady, their goalkeeper, he's been probably their best player all season. He has, again, another really young player. I think he's 20, 21, grown up over the last couple seasons. As you guys may remember, they had this 17-year-old goalkeeper named Gaga Slonina. They sold him to Chelsea for a big fee because they had this kid, Chris Brady, who they felt could be an upgrade on Gaga Slonina. I don't know if he's been an upgrade yet, but he's been very good. He's very quick. He's a very toolsy goalkeeper. And so for a team that's facing a lot of pressure, for a team that has to sit back often and is going to have a lot of shots on target, a lot of shots against them, Chris Brady is an excellent goalkeeper for that type of team. And he's grown a lot over this season. He was phenomenal on Wednesday night against Cincinnati. He had, I believe, 7 saves, maybe 8, kept the Chicago Fire in that game and helped them eventually get 3 points. So he's been very good. He's a really good young goalkeeper. He's a guy that, it's not going to be easy to beat him if he's on his game. So something to keep in mind. And then another name I'm just going to throw out there, it's Kellen Acosta. This is a player that the Chicago Fire really felt they could get something from this season. Longtime MLS veteran, has played with the U.S. men's national team, a familiar face around the league. He hasn't been very good. I'll just put it bluntly. Not the player that they needed. He's sort of an 8, but again, they need players that are going to elevate the talent around them, and they just don't have that. It's a lot of individual players, and Kellen Acosta wasn't the guy that they needed for that team. And so I know he's a name or a face that might be familiar to a lot of fans. Not the player that he's been in the past. Hasn't had a great season this year. Okay, let's talk about Inter Miami because that's who we're all here for. They're coming off a win. Aside from a loss to Cincinnati, they've been very good over the last 6 weeks, even without some of their best players. And again, some of those players are now returning to the lineup. Sergio Busquets among them after serving a suspension for that red card he got against FC Cincinnati. And so what is Inter Miami going to do tonight from a lineup perspective? Greg Callender, I think, obviously goes right into goal, first name on the team sheet. At right back, we saw Ian Frey play there and play well on a Wednesday night, but I doubt we're going to see him again just because of the injury concerns. He did go 100-plus minutes for the first time. He went the full game for the first time since his return. So we're going to see Marcelo Wiegand, no doubt about that. He was also missing from Wednesday night's game because of a yellow card accumulation suspension. Toto Aviles, who played well on Wednesday night, I think also slots right in at center back. Sergio Busquets, I have as his pair for tonight. Sergei Kristoff, we saw leave the game early on Wednesday night because of an injury. He is listed as questionable. If he is available to go, I do think he's going to start. But I just get the sense that they're going to save him. They're not going to play him tonight. I think Kristoff isn't available. And so I think Tata Martino is going to choose Sergio Busquets. The other options are Ian Frey playing on short rest. I don't think that's something he wants to do. Noah Allen, who we did see come in and play well on Wednesday night. I think there's a little bit of a conversation there, but ultimately I think Tata Martino is going to try and get his best players on the field. And so I think he's going to put Sergio Busquets as a center back in that back line. I know it wasn't pretty against FC Cincinnati, but he did play as a center back in the 3 or 4 games prior to that and was very good. So it's not unreasonable to think that Busquets could be really good back there, especially with Aviles as his partner. Again, that second half against Charlotte was, I think, the blueprint with Aviles and Busquets having both the athleticism to cover transition opportunities, but also the ability to play out of the back at a tremendously high level. You can see why there would be a lot of excitement there. And then Noah Allen, I think, will be available. Ryan Saylor, another option. I don't think that's where Tata is going to go. Noah Allen gives you more athleticism in the back line, which could be important because Chicago Fire are going to try and counter. And I mentioned Haley Selassie is a guy that could really be dangerous in transition. But ultimately, if Inter Miami can control this game, I think Tata Martino is going to feel comfortable about doing that. And I think he's going to put Sergio Busquets in that back line. That's the conversation, though. If Kristaps not available, it's probably Noah Allen or Sergio Busquets. And because I think he wants to get an extra midfielder in there, I think he's going to put Busquets on the back line. At left back, Jordi Alba, no doubt, going to start, going to go 90 minutes. That leaves the midfield, which is becoming a little more clear. Benjamin Kramaski away for international duty. Diego Gomez has now left for the Olympics, and so he won't be available. With Busquets on the back line, I think that means you have to start Yannick Bright in the midfield, who again gets another opportunity. Federico Redondo had a great game on Wednesday night. He's going to slot right back in there. And so really the only question is that third spot. I imagine he's going to go right back to Matias Rojas. He didn't have a tremendous game on Wednesday. I thought he was a little bit invisible. It was his first game back in some time because he went to the Copa America with Paraguay, but he's been solid, but was invisible on Wednesday night. And so if I'm him, if I'm Tata Martino, I'm saying, listen, we're going to watch the film. We're going to see what you could do better. We're going to see how you can find more spaces to operate. And we're going to put you right back out there to help you grow some confidence in that position and build some chemistry with these guys. We saw him right away, had incredible chemistry with Lionel Messi, but without Messi in the lineup, we haven't seen Rojas be as impressive. That leads us to the front line. Diego Gomez is out. I think you just easily slot Robert Taylor right in there, and it becomes relatively seamless. He's a really good player. He's a guy that we can see a lot from. And so Robert Taylor, again, tonight, I think makes a lot of sense. Luis Suarez starting at the number 9. Listen, Leo Campana has not scored in the last 4 games. I think there's been some criticism of him. Some of it justified, some of it probably a little harsh, but he wasn't great on Wednesday night. Luis Suarez came in and made a big impact in that second half. And so I think he's ready to start this game. I think Suarez goes right in at number 9. And then lastly, Julian Gressel. He has been excellent lately. He's been an incredible deliverer of the ball. Has, I think, 7 straight games with a goal contribution, 5 straight games with an assist. He is a creative outlet in a way that I think back to times pre-Messi where Inter Miami could have really used a player like Julian Gressel who could be a threat, who could put balls in dangerous spots. And so I expect to see Gressel in the starting lineup tonight. I'm not sure how that front 3 is going to press Robert Taylor, Luis Suarez, and Julian Gressel. One of the hallmarks of the last couple of weeks has been the fact that we've had 3 athletic frontline players that can press and try and create high turnovers in a way that we haven't always done this season, especially when Suarez and Messi are in the lineup, because they aren't those aggressive pressers that some of the younger guys are. So I'm a little curious to see if we can continue to create turnovers high up the field that can lead to obvious opportunities. But listen, this is a team with a ton of talent. You bring back Luis Suarez, you bring back Sergio Busquets. You have an overwhelming amount of talent in this game. And so Inter Miami should have no trouble creating what they need to create in this game and, coming away with 3 points. I will add, just for the record, it is understood to me that Inter Miami is going to be wearing the archive kits tonight. I believe they announced it publicly. So we'll get our first opportunity to see them in those blue and orange kits. It should be really exciting. Guys, that's it for today. Let's go get 3 points. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.